death does duty end, dear listeners. Another tale from the 41st millennium awaits as XJ, Robert, and I put on our camo cloaks and join Ibram Gaunt in his famed regiment of the Imperial Guard, Tanith's first and only. Tonight's offering is a short story by Dan Abnett, first published in issue 4 of the Inferno magazine, titled Ghostmaker. The story occurs in the Sabbat Worlds Crusade, where Ibram Gaunt and his not yet formed ghosts will play a vital role in the stories and books to come. We join our not yet as famous Commissar Gaunt on his way to the founding fields of a brand new regiment, the before mentioned Tanith troops, that are to provide snipers and stealth troops to the Imperium of Man. Gaunt is rather pessimistic, headache-ridden, and distrustful of the natives of this strange planet, with its moving forests and tribal tattooed populace. However, the officer has tact enough to keep most of these complaints to himself. As the day moves on, devastating news reach the top brass of the planet. A chaos force, one carelessly let through by the new War Master Makaroth, is en route to Tanith. With only hours to spare, Gon makes the uneasy choice to retreat with all that is salvageable, abandoning the planet to its doom. The Tanith's men, who still draw breath, want to see Gaunt and kill him, get his head on a spike, so to speak. Yet the Commissar finds a way to rally his troops. On his deathbed, War Master Slaydo promised Gaunt and the Guard he would lead into battle a world of their own, which, while would not replace Tanith, creates a goal for the regiment. Within the inner monologue, we see how much the choice of leaving the Tanith planet haunts Gaunt, as he is disgusted when receiving commendation for his quick thinking. The third part of the tale showcases how dangerous a score of soldiers can be when unleashed upon forces utterly unfamiliar with the tactical doctrines of their enemy. The ghosts dispose of chaos forces, secure the front line, and in the aftermath swear loyalty to their commander, one grimly referred to as the Ghostmaker. So that is the tale that we all got to read this week. It introduces a lot of very interesting characters who all get a moment to shine. Obviously, it focuses a lot on Gaunt and his inner workings, the way he sees the world. And for my two astute co-hosts, I just want to mention that Ibram Gaunt is a one in a million type of a commissar. He is not the usual type of an officer that you would see in the Imperial Guard. In fact, he is the most human soldier in the human army when it comes to the way he interacts with his men, with the doctrine, and so on and so forth. Usually, commissars within the Imperial Guard stand in the back line, and if they see even an inkling that someone would be retreating, they shoot them in the head. That's their job. So, Commissar Gaunt takes his duties very differently and very seriously. And throughout the stories, you get to see more and more of what this means. You know, what it means to be a leader such as this. So that is one defining quality of his leadership that's very different to the universe. I thought I'd mention that so that you know that this ray of hope, so to speak, is very unique and interesting for Warhammer. Although it's still very bleak, this story. Um, but regardless, I will save my thoughts for later. I want to hear from our co-hosts here what they thought about the tale. So, Robert, what did you think of the Ghostmaker, or just Ghostmaker? I think it's just called.
I was quite positive about it, actually. Quite impressed. I can see that it took a lot of skill to write it. The author shows up well as a writer. I Anything negative I've got to say doesn't really apply to the story itself, but merely to the fact that, and it's just a quirk in my personality, I suppose, that I just happen to detest the Warhammer universe. Although really, it's about time I tried to get over that, because apparently it's so famous that Nikki, you could do almost all of your introduction before you even mentioned the word Warhammer. I suppose the implication being that just about everybody should know what it is.
Not only that, I put in references to Warhammer. So, for example, only in death does duty end, dear listeners.
Right.
As I began
Yeah.
this podcast today, there's a very famous quote from Warhammer, which
Yeah.
people probably get.
I can just point out what I think was the most remarkable scene in the book to me, and that was the near mutiny scene, the scene where Gaunt almost, you feel he's comes within a hairbreadth of being deposed by his own troops, by his dissatisfied subordinates, and he manages to get out of it. I thought that was what impressed me most in the story. I think that I do have just one minor question to do with the story. That is, what is an astropath? I didn't
And
quite get
as
that.
Yeah, so the universe of Warhammer has um, thousands of words that are Warhammer specific, like a lasgun, right? A lasgun is
Mm,
a laser rifle.
I assume
Uh,
so, yeah.
yeah, exactly. Those of us who have read many sci-fi stories, a lot of these words, we're like, oh, okay, I get it. Lasgun, las
Mm,
pistol,
mm,
bolt pistol, right? Cool, get it. Chainsword, right? Sword that has a chain on it,
mm,
like a chainsaw.
mm,
Yeah, an astropath is something a little bit different, a little bit more specific to the universe of Warhammer. I'm gonna start from afar, and then you'll understand why. So, in order to traverse the galaxy, we don't take 100 years to get from point A to point B manner. Um, Humanity has introduced a way to transmit through this interdimensional area of space that's kind of like the mirror universe to our universe, called the warp. And the warp is where all of these terrible things come from, like the demons, right? The chaos powers, and so on and so forth. But it is also a vast place where time doesn't have any properties, and neither does matter, basically, right? Like nothing obeys the laws of physics. That's why you can travel past through it from point A to point B. And an astropath is someone, a psyker, and a psionically enhanced human who is able to see clearly through the warp, who's able to
mm,
transmit information through the warp, who's able to create maps of the warp. Now, they can't traverse the warp. You need a different type of mutant, a different type of psyker called the navigators, right? They navigate through the warp, but an astropath is like a super beefed up pigeon in the Warhammer universe, right?
mm,
They send out information, they receive information,
mm,
and they would not be able to do so if the emperor didn't sit on the golden throne. It did not create this, let's call it the lighthouse. This huge light within the warp where they can always pinpoint, okay, that's Terra, right? That's
mm,
Earth. And if I know where
mm,
Earth is, right, coordinates, okay, now I know where to receive the message from, and so on and so
mm,
forth, right?
mm.
That's what an astropath is.
Yeah, this reminds me actually, this that your explanation of the warp reminds me of some Cordwainer Smith stories, one of which we discussed, the game of Rat and Dragon, but also another one, Drunk Boat, which goes into what Cordwainer Smith calls Space 3, which is a very eerie kind of medium in which you can traverse cosmic distances instantaneously at a certain cost, though. Right.
It's
Yeah.
it's basically borrowed from Dune, isn't it? The navigators.
The guild in Dune. Yeah. I would I would say that just to search for other nice things to say about this story, which I say is set in a universe which I find difficult to take, but the author is good at is an efficient writer when it comes to describing military problems and realities. In the, for example, the paragraph that begins, "It will only stay a victory if we police the won territories correctly." That paragraph is a very well written one. So I think I'm running out of praises to lavish on this story. I do. I'm not being sarcastic. I really do think it's good, and I read it with something approaching pleasure. So,
I will be interested to talk to you more about the Warhammer universe and what do you find so detestable about it. But well,
no, there's
yeah,
one more thing I want to ask about the Warhammer literary project in general, not so much about the universe itself. I just would like to know,
yeah.
is there an authority that controls which writings are canonically Warhammer and which aren't? Because it seems to me that there's so many writers contributing to this
So
enterprise.
so Warhammer has a great policy regarding this. It's called narrative bias, right? So Games Workshop and Black Library, the two companies, I mean, Black Library is Games Workshop, so Games Workshop basically, they have the policy that everything is canon and nothing is. And the
Yeah.
idea is that it's all about how much do you believe the narrator? How much do you find his information reliable? Right?
That's good.
Are these facts true? Are they not? In fact, several interesting mysteries and plot points are created from these differentiating points of view, contradicting points of view. Sometimes an entire story is based on the fact that one faction believes that what happened in book, XYZ is true, and that's
Mm,
why they've went renegade. And then somebody revisits the book XYZ and they outline what has actually occurred. And it's all with this like poetic irony, right? Oh, all of these beliefs are true from a certain point of view, but really the guy was trying to do the opposite, right? There's a
mm,
lot of that kind of
yeah.
stuff.
So
The
it's
before. Mhm.
yeah, it's kind of probabilistic in a way. It's like describing the path of an electron. It's a sort of cloud, and it's most likely to be in certain locations, but there's no such thing as certainty. No story fits in 100%. But
Exactly. And
mm,
so, for example, Graham McNeil, the individual we interviewed, my favorite Warhammer author, um, in his book, The False Gods, Horus, the guy who, if you remember, sort of started the whole downfall of the Imperium so many years ago, he sees a vision where he is not worshipped or not referenced or revered by the people in the future, and all who are revered is the emperor and nine other sons of his, and he's not there, and that makes him jealous. And the gods of chaos are basically like, this is the future, this is like this is what's going to happen, and he's like, oh, I understand, I have to rebel against my father, completely not understanding that this is the future he's about to create by becoming a heretic, right? So that's one of those like retcon sort of like situations where because of what he doesn't know, he creates what we have seen, right?
Yeah.
What has become of the universe.
I suppose the Warhammer universe is actually swallowing up the whole of literature in a way, in that just about any story, if you give it a low enough probability, could be a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? That is a good theory. Uh, don't tell that to the Games Workshop lawyers, though, because they'll sue everyone. All right. Actually, what did you think about Ghostmaker?
I'm going to change my approach a little bit. I think I've been pondering about this particular episode, and I think I'm going to change my approach a little bit. I'm going to ask questions first, mostly because when you're jumping into a franchise you have absolutely no idea about, some things don't make sense. So the first question I want to ask Nikki is this: Gaunt, Commissar Gaunt, is he a recurring character? Is there are there stories after this about him? Because I remember you telling us what the Inferno magazine is supposed to be. Is like a lot of one shots, and then Games Workshop will pick up the ones that got popular and then expand on that. So Mr. Gaunt, does he have a continuation? I get the sense that he does.
He has 19 more books.
19 more books.
Yeah.
So this particular story spawned. Is this the beginning of Commissar Gaunt, or?
Yeah, so this is the first perspective we get to see from Tanith, like the first and only, the regiment, and Gaunt, and it continued on in Inferno 8, and then Inferno issue 30, where there were two more short stories published. Actually, Inferno issue 30 was there were several short stories. It was like a whole Gaunt's Ghost special. The entire magazine was about Gaunt's Ghosts, um, because it was one of the most popular, if not the most popular stories coming out of the entire magazine. And then after that, all transpired at the same time as issue 30 was being published. Dan Abnett was preparing, or had already given the manuscript for the first book within the series called The First and Only, referring to the regiment.
So the story itself is, this short story was a very can I describe it as a very successful launching point for the career of Commissar Gaunt?
Yeah, for sure.
And
it was a good Warhammer propaganda for Mr. Gaunt.
Ibram Gaunt. Okay, and then I'm guessing that the rest of the 19 stories. So Gaunt's story is it's more about his company than he himself is kind of like a company of a band of brothers type of show.
Yeah, so there are many recurring characters. Yeah, there are a lot of recurring characters. I mean, you've met them, Larkin, try again, Bragg, one of my favorite characters, right? The guy who can't hit anything with his big gun, right? And my favorite character, obviously, is Major Ron, who is also a recurring character. There goes on. I mean, you can already imagine what happens next.
Right. So
at the ending of the story.
So this is kind of like it is a little bit like a a sort of story like the Black Company or Band of Brothers, where you have a titular main character sort of, but he shares it with a bunch of his mates, and then it's about them going from war to war kind of stuff.
Yes and no. So it depends on the book. A lot of the books are the way you've described them, where they are, but some where they are sort of like the collective ensemble, all participating in something. First and Only and Necropolis, the first and the third book are very much like that. But for example, the second book is a bunch of tales about each of these characters individually. And what Dan Abnett does in that is he showcases to you like, okay, this is a story about Try Again Bragg. What is he as a character? Let us get more familiar with him so that you understand him better. Like, oh, let's look at Mad Larkin. What has made him mad? Why is his madness important to his character? Will he ever be normal again? Does he want to be? And so on and so forth. So it asks like interesting questions about the characters and explores them. That's the second book,
Right.
for example.
Cool. Yeah, I guess this is the start of a series. So yeah, I guess it's very successful. It's a very successful short story for that. I have another question. This founding, it reads a lot like how the Mongolians would basically go to a city, raise it to the ground, then force the natives in that city to march against the next city, basically. So they basically gather cannon fodders or soldiers on the ground, so to speak, and then use it in as numbers in their war effort. Am I close? Is that what a founding is, more or less?
Yes and no. So you are correct in that it's an assembling of troops to go fight in your wars. But actually, most of the recruits, most of the individuals who are part of it, do so willingly. You have to understand that through the 1,000 years that the emperor has been sitting on the golden throne, humanity has been indoctrinated into this religion to the point where they all starkly believe that the only thing that can keep the enemies at bay is their faith in the emperor. And if the emperor asks something of you, you have to do it. So a lot of these foundings are, yes, they're sort of like this tithe that the Imperium collects from their planets, right? Sometimes they collect resources, sometimes they collect finished products, and a lot of the time, like here, they are collecting people, right, to fight for them. So a lot of these individuals might have even been volunteers. They might have been like, yes, I want to serve in the emperor's army. I want to protect my home. I want to protect humanity. This is what we are supposed to do. So they're not even forced. There is a special type of founding, which is much closer to what you're talking about. There are entire penal worlds where it's basically a huge prison, right? And those areas, the Imperium just shows up and says, "All right, give me 3,000 of your prisoners." And they're like, "Cool, here you go. Here's here's some people for you." And then they put them into uniforms, give them guns, and open the airlocks and say like, "Okay, if you make it back, you'll be a guardsman. Good luck. You're at the front line." And they're like, "Oh," and then they fight, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, that does help put this into perspective, I guess. I think like probably some of what I was thinking about my thoughts about the story leaked through my questions. I think the first thing I got when I read this is like issue 0 of something, basically. It's like the origins, Spider-Man, the origins or something like that, the beginning of something, and you basically confirmed that for me. The other thing I was thinking of is like this is very much a I suppose all Warhammer stories are like this, a vignette within a larger story. It feels kind of like Saving Private Ryan, I suppose, which is a vignette of a much larger story of World War II. And this long about way of saying is I'm not very sold by the story. First of all, like I think the first thing that threw me off about the story is I'm not convinced by the scale. Commissar Gaunt went down to Tanith Magna, and then he did a founding, and he rescued 3,500 men, salvaged 3,500 men from Tanith Magna, and I'm thinking to myself like I'm not sold by the scale, because like an aircraft carrier, a U.S. aircraft carrier, has a crew of about 5,000 to 6,000 people. So like a 3,500 men doesn't seem like a big enough deal to, in the grand scheme of things. It's like it's a drop in the bucket, so to speak. So I don't feel the sense of scale in this struggle, because like the chaos that came after basically overran Tanith Magna within like hours, and I don't know. It's like, to me, it feels a little bit like, okay, Commissar Gaunt needs to salvage as much as possible, but 3,500 men in this scheme of things feel like grabbing a sack of potatoes from a warehouse and saving that in a fire. It's just like, it doesn't feel big enough. The other thing I suppose is, when I think about vignettes in stories in a larger context, I think I much prefer very small personal stories, like Pestilence and The Last Church. Like, it's like, I think that far more to me anyway, it's far more poignant to document like the struggles of an individual within a much larger story. Again, like Saving Private Ryan, or I can think of some other vignette stories I have came across. I suppose because I haven't read any of the stuff that follows the vignette within the vignette, like the story of Matt Larkin or whatever, could be more compelling to me. Yeah, but this is just my personal opinion. Obviously, this short story was popular enough and struck a chord enough with Warhammer fans for it to launch off 19 books. Am I right? Yeah. So I think just with the writing wise, the other thing that struck me about this story is the sense of scale would work a lot better if it's something like Master and Commander that show on basically on a boat. So it's a boat and the crew is a lot smaller, and I can see some sort of the struggles that Gaunt may have to go through to win the respect of his men and all that. Even in a 3,000 man company, because then we have to think about all the support staff that comes with it. We are talking about maybe around 9,000 people in total. Commissar Gaunt in that context would be a very, very distant figure. Most people wouldn't even get to see him, and at least that's my experience in an actual army. Like battalion commander, we almost never talk to. Like the common soldier would almost never talk to the guy in charge. But of course, the interaction is maybe between Korbeck and Gaunt and his coterie of commanding officers, so that might be different. But well, as a beginning story, I'm basically on a let's wait and see, let's give it a chance kind of position, I suppose. Yeah, that's my take.
Awesome. Yeah.
Mm.
All right. I'm gonna go through my take, and then we can divulge a little bit further into details. So, I found I found the story itself very engaging. I like the idea of Gaunt and the type of character he is in this universe. To me, it's the perfect type of a character to have as the main ensemble piece within an ensemble story. Because you've got a person who is very pragmatic, but also level headed, and he's got a heart. And he has the misfortune to be born in the Warhammer universe, right? So he's this one guy who is kind of human, and he's faced with the horrible reality that is the imperial bureaucracy, right? And so most individuals in the Warhammer universe, most commissars would be like, oh, well, Tanith's fucked. I'm going on my ship. See ya. There would be no 3,000 men. There would be minus 500 probably, because he would have left all his staff too. He'd be like, get me on my ship as soon as possible. We're just losing a planet. Who cares? Because that's the true scale of Warhammer. That's one of the things that you really have to sort of like keep in your head. Human life doesn't matter in this universe anymore, because there's just so many of us that we are just another resource. Water is probably more valuable per gallon than a human life. So the fact that Gaunt was like, well, we have no time, but we're gonna do our best, and even though our operation is basically gonna do negligible numbers, we're still gonna do our best. And he gets those 3,500 people and he gets out, is kind of the selling point for me, because it means that he doesn't care about the optics. He cares about doing the right thing. And in this moment where he's like, right, we're gonna try our best, and I'm gonna stand there on the planet right until the last ship sails, right, until the last drop is gone that we can take. That's, that's very inspiring, especially in the universe like Warhammer, where the heroism that comes from a single human is a lot more obscured due to the fact that you've got giant space marines that have two hearts and can spit acid and, like eat someone's brain and find out information about enemy camp. Like when you have crazy stuff like that in the universe, and an author focuses on the normal, well, as normal as you can be, human in the Warhammer 40,000 universe, and he shows you the human side of it all. It's the reason why I like these stories, right? It's the reason why I always preferred the tales of individuals within this huge machine, because it's all well and good seeing the space marines, right, going around and destroying everything. That's a different type of fun. That's a different type of enjoyment. Not to say that I dislike it, right? It has its place and it can be done really well, like Two Kinds of Fool. by Graham McNeil. I really enjoyed that story because it's literally like 30 minutes of the best action movie that was never filmed. And this is very accurately portrayed by XJ, in my opinion. This is very similar to Saving Private Ryan in its scope and in its reliance on humanity. In fact, I think it's a perfect allegory for most Dan Abnett stories within the Warhammer universe. I think they're all very much like Saving Private Ryan, where you use the idea of like, okay, World War II is happening. But while World War II is happening, there is this mother who's lost all her sons except for one. And we can't let her lose one last one. Right? And a lot of Dan Abnett's stories are like this. All right, the world is collapsing, huge monsters are coming out of the warp, right? But we've got this one guy. He's on this planet, and he really needs our help. We gotta save him, right? Like, the stories of Gaunt's ghosts progress in complexity. So the first book is a murder horror mystery type of a situation. The second book is the vignettes that I spoke about. The third book is a, you know, giant country-sized, yes, I didn't misspeak, country-sized city being defended by the ghosts against the forces of chaos, right, coming there. The fourth one, I just started, so I couldn't tell you what it's about. But each tale sort of like progresses into a new genre and showcases to you more of the characters, and it gives you this, oomph. And it all started with this story, right? And I think it is clunky at times. I will concede on that. I think it has, like it has a little bit of a pacing problem. But at the same time, Mr. Abnett is capable of showing us the founding of Tanith, this amazing scene that Robert talked about, where there's an almost mutiny and then it gets reversed at the last second. And then he shows you a really great two action scenes. Ends with Gaunt escaping, right? And I really, really like the way that whole thing ends, where it's kind of, oh, how does it? I'm trying to remember. Trying to remember exactly how it went. Yeah. Okay, hold on. Guard units moved in cautiously at first. They found the cultists dead at their position. Each one had, in unison, taken his own life, as if in response to some great loss. In the conclusion of his report on the victory of Blackshard, General Hadrach summarized that the destruction of the Chaos relic, which had given meaning to the cult defenses, robbed them of the will or need to continue. Hadrach also noted the significant role in the victory played by the newly founded Tanith First, which had supplemented his own forces. Although as commander-in-chief of the Black Shard action, he took overall credit for the victory. He was magnanimous in acknowledging the work of Gaunt's ghosts, and particularly recommended their stealth and scouting abilities. Commissar Gaunt, wounded in stomach and shoulder, emerged alive from the dead zone 20 minutes after the blast, and was treated by medical teams before returning to his frigate. He might have made his way out of the enemy lines faster, had he not carried the unconscious body of the one of his officers, a Major Ron, back to safety. Wow. All right. I'm in. Tell me more, Mr. Admin. That, like, I think actually the like stuff afterwards where they're like all celebrating, I don't really care for that. That should have been the end. That paragraph. It was so perfect. Perfectly written, with Gaunt reappearing in the last moment, like carrying this dude, and he's like, and he would have made it earlier, had he not taken this traitor, right, and brought him back to the front lines, making sure that both of them survive. An absolute gem, and showcases to you who Gaunt is and why he does what he does, right? Because he feels guilty, right? That's why he saves Ron. He feels guilty for Tanith. So he understands why the dude was gonna shoot him. And he doesn't take it out on him. He's like, I get it. I would have done the same probably. Right? And that's beautiful to me. Like that whole idea that someone could be in command but also be so human is all inspiring. I mean, completely unrealistic, but very inspiring. And yeah, it's a rarity, right? When someone is so connected to his men. But yeah, I really enjoyed the story, as you could tell. It's probably not the strongest of Dan Abnett's works, but um, some of the paragraphs, some of the action in it rivals his best work too. So like all put together, I wouldn't say it's like the best of the best, but at the same time, you can clearly see why he is an author that many people revere in the Warhammer sphere. So, Robert, who was your favorite character except for Gaunt? You can't say Gaunt because obviously it's Gaunt. So, which other minor character that you got to see a glimpse of caught your eye?
Well, I suppose this the guy you were just mentioning just now, the traitor,
Major Ron.
Yeah.
He's my favorite character as well, actually.
I do.
He's the best.
I hadn't thought of it that way myself, but now that you mention it, I think it would have been good to end the story in at that point that you suggested. On the other hand, I did think the actual ending was quite good. It did add something to it.
Yeah. I mean, I am, I am a man of all or nothing, So if I say cut it, cut it. But yeah, you've got the right of it there. There is some merit in the ending as well. It's just I would prefer if it was the summary
It makes it
that
more
ended
subtle.
it all there.
Yeah, the actual ending makes it more subtle in a way because you realize that it's going to take time for this chapter to be run over.
I think in the context of what the Inferno magazine about, probably the better ending would be the one that is already in print, because it's a comma and not a question mark. If they stopped, if Dan Abnett had stopped at the point where Gaunt carried out Ron, then it would have been a full stop, So comma gives it like to be continued sense, I suppose.
I see what you mean.
Yeah, fair enough, actually. Who was your favorite character besides Gaunt, actually?
I haven't spent enough time with the series to really form an opinion one way or the other. The unfortunate thing is
good first impression. Let's put it that way.
First impression. I guess the Piper boy, man. Milo.
Milo. Yeah. Milo's a very interesting character.
He's like, I get the sense that this guy is well, I might be getting things wrong, but I feel like he could be underneath all that innocent charm, bit of a psychopath, really. I mean, it remains to be seen. Just some of the things is like, I find it very odd. First of all, that so I don't know, because it wasn't described in the story how they chose the 3 people to appear before Gaunt, but I was very taken aback that Milo was there. I figured Ron volunteered himself.
Yeah.
Corbeck got volunteered, and I'm just thinking, how did Milo get there?
So Milo's a very, I don't want to reveal to you what's wrong with him, but Milo's a very interesting character, because throughout he is not gonna stay the runner boy forever. He's gonna be promoted at some point as well. I don't want to tell you how far, but um, basically his whole mystery, what he's like, and how he knows all these things, and how good he is at like anticipating people, is a big part of the story. And the fact that this really amazed me, right? Because I've read 3 novels already, and rereading Ghostmaker and just thinking about it, I was like, wow, Abnett really seeds the fact that this dude is weird from the beginning with the Milo character. That's very fascinating. So he had planned ahead to make Milo this mystery. So it's very interesting.
Well, I guess my instincts are pretty good.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, who is this Milo character? Why does he keep appearing in the right place at the right time? Interesting. Yeah, that was my thing. I would be like, yeah, this is the guy to watch out.
I can't say anything. I mean,
I can
like, if
see
I
you
say something,
I can see you really trying to keep it in. Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So, good character pick. So for me, one of the most interesting part about this, um, is the fact that although it is a very popular faction, so to speak, within the Imperium, Gaunt's Ghosts haven't actually received a huge amount of models. So, if you have forgotten, or if you don't know, Warhammer is a tabletop wargaming, uh, game first. It is a miniature game first. Where you paint your models. Actually, I've got a painter set with me right here, because I couldn't resist and I started painting some. Um, getting back into it, but the Gaunts have not received that much love when it comes to plastic, and I really wonder why. Because honestly, it is one of the most enticing regiments of the Imperial Guard, but they just simply don't have that much. And um, I think I think it's because of how weird they are, right? A
Weird
lot
in
of
what
if you
sense?
Well, they've got these tribal tattoos. They wear camo cloaks. They're all like rugged. They don't look like normal soldiers, so to speak. So when you're making the Imperial Guard and you want to sell it, you want to show the poster boys. You want to show the guys with helmets and so forth. And Tanith they're just so out of the ordinary when it comes to like what you imagine for a soldier.
I'll
Right? They're,
I'll
they're basically bandits.
I'll be honest. When I read the description of the Tanith Magnans, whatever you call them, they do give me a sense of like a cross between the Fremen of Dune and then a little bit of Native Indians in Native Americans. Let's put it that way.
I think they're based on Welsh or Irish tribes.
Fair
I think
enough.
that's the inspiration.
The camel thing just really just puts me in the mind of the Fremen in Dune, basically.
Mm.
Yeah, swirly cloak and all that blending into the background.
I
Basically,
mean,
guerrilla fighters.
they are gorilla. Yeah, that's right. So they're a stealth unit, and that's unheard of. So if you to back it up a little bit, Imperial Guard are if if the if the Space Marines the hammer of the Emperor. The Imperial Guard have the grace of a rocket launcher as a solution. Their main method is we're going to send as many of our people as possible until the enemy drowns in our las guns and our people, right? That's the main way to defeat anything for the Imperial Guard. They just send as many people as possible, wave after wave after wave. So when this came out and having a regiment that's like, oh yeah, we're a stealth unit that goes in the back line and we fight all smart like, it was very inventive. Let's put it that way. Because
Actually, the other thing that didn't quite sold me about the story was Gaunt's very dismissive, initially very dismissive of the founding, the people of Tanith Magna, because in most armies, the rangers, the scouts, they are the elite, not the frontline guys. Like, you have to be really good to get in to be part of the rangers. So pathfinders like the Ghostmakers or whatever they're called, right? They are
Ghosts, yeah.
the ghosts. They are the elite. So I found Commissar Gaunt's dismissal of these people to be very strange. That was one other thing that didn't really sell me on the story.
Yeah, but it's very in universe, because the way that humanity has been fighting its problems is that way. It's just like send as many people to the front line and shoot so many las guns that there's literally not a millimeter worth of space that's not filled with our fire. Okay, now the enemy is dead. Let's carry on. Right? That's kind of been the tactic for a bit. So his initial dismissiveness kind of makes sense because he lives in a universe where this stealth stuff doesn't really exist.
Okay, well, yeah, I guess that might be a point against Warhammer from the way I look at things. Yeah. Okay, enough talking from me.
It is definitely a very stylized universe. You have to you have to look at it from the perspective of, all right, so this is cheesy, but how do we make this cheesy and also very horrific? All right, now that we've made it cheesy and horrific, how do we add a bit of humanity to it?
I mean, that's easy, right? It's just pizza on pineapple. Pineapple on pizza, man. Cheesy and horrifying,
even
right?
Even Warhammer would not stoop this low.
I want to say, just make a comparison here. What you were saying, Nikki, some while back about the forces of chaos and erupting out of the warp. It reminds me a lot of Hodgson's The Nightland, published in 1912. Very early science fiction horror classic of far future, and the assumption in that scenario is that mankind has dabbled in forces which would have been better left alone, and those forces have broken in through what he calls doorways in the night, which is an extremely eerie concept. So here we have the Earth has been left without any exterior illumination because the sun has long gone out. The Earth is just spinning through space, and the only source of energy left is geothermal from deep inside the world. And there's just humanity is now in one giant pyramid 7 miles high, and just waiting for the end, basically. And creatures from goodness knows where have have entered our universe and are sort of lying in wait, surrounding us and ready to close in when our current gives out. It's a really unforgettable vision. So I
Oh man,
recommend.
we gotta review that story. That sounds
It's a
really
long,
cheerful.
yeah,
That is so dystopian, man.
yeah. It's
What were
it's a
you gonna
long
say?
book. It's a long book,
It's a
but
long book.
if you can read, you know, goodness knows how many Warhammer books, then you should be able to lap that one up easily enough.
It's true. I am a great fan of great many works, but I think the thing that brings me back to Warhammer, Robert, is the community. Actually, see, I live in a very digital age, right, and I'm very much connected to the internet, in many ways, on a daily basis, and Warhammer is one of those things where, because it's so numerous and because so many people are passionate about it, you can read something, you can go to Reddit, you write something about it, and there's gonna be someone responding to you for sure, right?
Hmm.
So it's something about Warhammer, because of its nature, because of the way it's made. No matter what policies Games Workshop puts in, and what restrictions it tries to create, people really take it and run with it and make it their own, right? And although before a very short amount of time, this all was encouraged by the company that created it, right? They were encouraging, like, make your stuff, make fan fiction, make movies, so on and so forth. Like, they've kind of dialed that back in the recent years. The community itself has grew up around this idea that this is not their universe, this is our universe, right? Like, we get to consume it, we get to put more into it, we get to interact with it however we wish to, right? From miniatures to stories to animations to video games and so on and so forth.
Hmm. Yeah, impressive.
Yeah, it's very fun. All
How
right,
about
so
we do a little side project, you and me, Nikki.
okay,
We design a look for the ghosts.
a look.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like a drawing for them, you mean? Or like a...
No, why go through all that trouble? Just make a sculpt of it.
Yeah, I mean, we could. We
Yeah.
definitely could, man. Yeah.
Let's see if we can push that through, man. It'll be fun. All right.
Yeah, would be really cool. Should we I have one more thing to say about the story, and I think we can end it there. Um I really like the fact that it takes us to this situation, to this really low point, right, in the history of these people, and then it shows them persevering through it. To me, that's the heart of this universe, right? Showing something really terrible, and the people who are sort of like down on the low, the last bullet in your chamber, and you're like, no, I'm not giving up. We're gonna stand up and we're gonna fight. I find that very inspiring, and the fact that the short story is basically that in a nutshell uh, is really cool. Um, Unsurprising for everybody, I think I'll give this a solid 8.5 out of 10.
Hmm. Hmm.
Rob, what's your score?
It's difficult. For the story itself, I'd give it a pretty good 7 out of 10, I think, or 7.5. Any criticisms I make, as I said before, just, well, in a way, they're not criticisms. The less I think of the Warhammer universe, the more I respect anyone who's able to write about it in an enjoyable way. So I suppose that should put the score up. Really, I should give it an 8 because Dan Abnett has voluntarily undergone the handicap of setting his story in this awful place.
I think that's kind of the point. The point is, I think we've had this discussion before, but I'll reiterate it. Like the point is that it's so horrible. You don't want to live in
Mm,
this universe. It's not like an inviting place. It's the idea that like, it's like listen, even in this most horrible place where you would never want to end up in, humanity is still fighting back, right? So what's your
mm,
excuse, right? Even in this horrible place, we're still, we've still got a hold somewhere.
mm,
So get a hold of yourself and have a good life, right? That's kind of the
mm.
message to me. Uh, Actually, what about you? What is your score?
I'll give it a 6. Yeah, I'm
Ah,
the probably the worst kind of reader to Warhammer universe, to be honest, because I am one of those people that, well, I'm sure it's evident by now, if I get knocked off my suspension of disbelief, then the story go rolls really low for me. And the unfortunate thing is I do pay attention to what I read. So details like that do matter to me.
Fatal mistake that.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm a terrible reader. I read things the wrong way all the time.
Mm,
all right. So, those of you who haven't read it, go have a look at Ghostmaker. It's available on the Internet Archive in Inferno #4. You can go read it now, and if you do like it, let us know. If you don't like it, also let us know and why. What was your opinion of it? Um, and yeah, thank you everyone for watching. Please like and subscribe, and until next week, see ya.
So yeah.